actually going to get the most bang for their buck with the Scotsman SRNP110A 1SS Nugget ice machine? Is it a game changer for the average family that just wants a few extra cubes for their drinks? Or is it a specialized tool that only makes sense for high-volume users? And, with the price tag that usually lands in the three-figure range, does it justify itself for everyday buyers who aren't running a bar? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you first start looking at Undercounter ice makers, the biggest hesitation is usually around overpaying for capacity you'll never use. A 110 pound per day output sounds impressive on paper, but if your household only tops off a pitcher a few times a week, you could end up with a machine that's constantly churning, humming, and using electricity without delivering real value. That's the risk most casual shoppers run into, buying a commercial-grade appliance for a residential kitchen and then dealing with the noise, the water drain logistics, and the maintenance schedule that comes with it. I've talked to a handful of people who tried to slip a big capacity unit into a small apartment, and the consensus was it's more hassle than it's worth. So let's break down exactly where this Scotsman model lands in the real world. First off, let's talk about the kind of environment where a 110 pounds per day Nugget ice machine shines. Imagine you run a small bar or a coffee shop that serves iced drinks all day long. Nugget ice, often called chewable ice, is a big draw for those venues because it melts slowly and gives a pleasant texture that customers love. With a production rate of 110 pounds a day, you can reliably fill several bins and keep the ice flow steady during peak hours without worrying about running out. The same logic applies to a catering business that needs to prep large batches of ice for multiple events. A single unit can keep up with a day-long service schedule. Even a boutique hotel that wants to offer a self-serve ice station in its lobby can benefit from the consistent output, especially if guests are staying for longer periods and expect that level of convenience. Now, flip the script and think about a typical family kitchen. If you're the type who just adds a few ice cubes to a glass of water, makes occasional margaritas for weekend gatherings, or fills a cooler for a backyard barbecue, the daily production of 110 pounds is massively over-engineered. In those scenarios, the machine will be idle most of the time, still pulling power, still producing heat that needs to be vented, and still requiring a water line and proper drainage. That translates into extra operating costs that you won't recoup with any real benefit. For those users, a countertop cube maker that produces a few dozen pounds a day is a lot more sensible. Beyond the sheer output, there are a few practical strengths that make the Scotsman SRNP110A 1SS stand out if you're in the right market segment. The smart control panel is intuitive. You can set the ice size, monitor production, and even get alerts when the bin is full. That kind of visibility matters when you're juggling multiple orders in a busy kitchen. The machine is also designed to be indoor-outdoor compatible, so if you have a poolside bar or a patio lounge that needs a steady ice supply, you can place it under a covered patio without worrying about temperature extremes frying the electronics. The stainless steel finish not only looks sleek but also resists the typical fingerprints and stains you see on plastic housings, which helps it blend into a professional setting without looking cheap. On the flip side, there are some hidden trade-offs that can trip up an unsuspecting buyer. First, the air-cooled system means the unit needs adequate clearance around it to vent heat efficiently. If you try to squeeze it into a cramped cabinet, you'll notice the compressor running louder and longer, which can be a nuisance in an open-plan kitchen. Noise levels aren't negligible. The compressor hum can be heard across a small dining area, so placement away from the main seating zone is advisable. The water drainage requirement is another practical consideration. You'll need a floor drain or a way to route condensate away, otherwise you risk water pooling under the unit and creating a slip hazard. Installation isn't a plug-and-play affair. You'll need a dedicated water line, proper grounding, and sometimes a professional to handle the hookup, which adds to the total cost of ownership. Maintenance is also a factor that only becomes apparent after a few weeks of use. Nugget ice machines have a more complex internal mechanism than standard cube makers, and they require regular cleaning cycles to prevent mineral buildup that can affect ice quality. If you don't follow the recommended cleaning schedule, the ice can develop an off-taste, and the machine's efficiency drops, leading to higher electricity usage. For a commercial operation, that's a manageable routine, but for a homeowner who only uses the ice occasionally, it can feel like an unnecessary chore. Let's walk through a concrete scenario. You're a homeowner who just bought a new outdoor kitchen.